Hi everyone, Darren Eastman here, PM for Runner, and with me, Elliot Rushton.
Hello.
EM for Runner. And today we're just going to continue the discussion that we kicked off, actually that Fabian kicked off around the deprecation policy at GitLab. So let me share my screen out really fast so you can see what's going on, and then I'll have Elliot share his screen when you get to his section. So sharing my screen. So the first thing you're seeing on the screen right now, for those that haven't seen it in the release post channel, Fabian Zimmer did a great job creating this video. It talks about how to deprecate and remove features in GitLab. He covers a lot of great content in here in terms of semantic versioning policy. If you haven't seen this one, I highly recommend that you take a look at this one, maybe ahead of our video. It really is a good kind of like segue into this. For folks that are new to the conversation, basically coming on the heels of GitLab 14.0, we had tons of feedback in the retro issue that we just needed to improve our overall process, policy around how we handle deprecations, removals here at GitLab. And as part of that broader discussion, we realized that there was some work that needed to be done in terms of making sure our language was consistent, our definitions were consistent in various places, and that the supporting policies as well as processes made sense for everyone that's involved. So a continuing evolution, and in the spirit of GitLab, we'll continue and iterate on this. Again, this is just another video in that series. So today I just want to call out, as I mentioned, here's the video that Fabian put out there. I will link to the video in this video as well. Just really fast in terms of documentation, for those that have been in GitLab for a while, you probably have figured out where all the docs are. For those that are new, I'm just going to kind of call it really fast. In Fabian's video, he mentioned a couple of different documentation areas. We have in our actual GitLab docs a couple of sections where we talk about the release and maintenance policy, and where we talk about the deprecation guidelines. So I will link those doc links. I'll add those doc links in the video summary description. But just for quick reference, if you go to GitLab docs, we've got the GitLab release and maintenance policy in the docs itself. We also have deprecation guidelines in the GitLab docs itself, right? So when you're kind of like trying to find out where to get content to tell you what to do, it may seem confusing. Don't worry. In this video, we'll try to help you like remove that confusion. And then finally in the docs as well, you also see a deprecation policy. And then this deprecation policy that's in the docs is really specific around the omnibus package. So you'll find some good information in here. So again, just to summarize, in our docs, you will find content that talks about deprecations, that talks about our policies. Now, what we've tried to do in terms of simplifying how we think about deprecations, breaking changes, and so on in GitLab is that on our product handbook page, we have defined, and we actually, before even now, the definitions were here, but what we've done since the 14.0 release is we've iterated on these definitions. And so today I'm just going to call out a few key changes to the current page. As I'm recording this video today with Elliot, Fabian already has an MR against this page. So by the time you actually read this page, there may be some additional edits to this. When you read this page yourself, again, if you find something that's not clear, that should probably be refined, please feel free to open an MR against this page. We want to continue iterating on this so that every PM and EM in GitLab can come to this page and get clear guidance in terms of what the definitions are and what the process is to handle breaking changes, deprecations, and removals. Really fast, Fabian already mentioned in his MR that we probably need to have a process specific to breaking changes, because we may introduce a breaking change, or you may introduce a breaking change that does not actually result in the removal of the feature. So that's kind of one nuance we'll probably need to get to as we iterate on this. But in terms of the changes here on this page that we've added as part of the retro 14.0 is that in terms of, and shout out to Sarah Waldner for taking the lead on this. She's done a great job in actually adding the definitions for breaking changes, deprecations, removals in here in a way that adds a bit more clarity to it. The only key thing I want to call out in today's call in terms of the other iteration is this note in here. And as you're reading this, you might miss all of this great content, but I really want to call this out. And let me zoom in just a little bit. And what we're asking for is really nothing that onerous. But what we've realized by going through the process in 14.0 is that, and I actually was guilty of this myself, is that when we announce a deprecation and by actually having that entry in the release post, and then later on maybe having a removal notice, Sometimes, depending on the feature itself, it's kind of hard to clearly communicate what it is we're changing, what it is we're removing, what it is we're breaking in language that's easy for our users and customers to understand. So what we're asking here is that for the product managers and the engineering managers, as you're working on deprecations over the life cycle of many releases or what have you, take and again, one more thing in your very busy day, we get it, but take a moment to look at the content, right? Does the content make sense to someone who has no context about what this feature is? Can they grasp it very clearly? Just take a moment to make sure that we are clearly communicating what this deprecation is, what this removal is. So just want to call that out really fast. And so just to summarize, what we've done is we've simplified, hopefully, the language around breaking changes, deprecations, removing features, so it's easy for you to understand. So you come to this page, which is the handbook. This is the policy. Now, when you are working on the release post itself, the way deprecations are handled in the release post is documented on the release post page. So that's what I was showing you before was the policy, right? Now you're working on the monthly release post 14.1, 14.2 that's coming up, and you're trying to figure out how do I actually communicate this out. That's what this page is telling you what to do. So hopefully it's given you a bit of frame in terms of all the different content pieces that are out there. And again, we're trying to make this as easy for you as possible, but at the same time, I want to make sure we're communicating clearly to our customers. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing, and I want to switch over to Elia Rush, the engineering manager for Runner, because the Runner team, like some of our other teams, manages a number of deprecations over the course of a calendar year between major releases. And so I thought it'd be cool for Elia to kind of talk about what we've been doing and what his team has been doing to manage the deprecation process. And I'll stop sharing for now.
Actually,
Elia, over to you.
Sorry, I'm still fighting with that bug. It won't let me share my screen.
I can
so
share.
maybe I can get you to
sure, I can share my screen now. Yeah, sure. Let me find that doc really fast.
Open up one of our deprecation issues. So at a high level, what has been kind of the cultural practice with our group since before I was involved was to at every .0 release, so 14.0 release, create an issue to track the 15.0 deprecations, right? Because of the semantic versioning, unless there's mitigating circumstances, we're only doing these deprecations on the .0 releases. And so here's the issue that, you can see it right there at the top, created a year ago, the 14.0 GitLab Runner features, deprecated features to remove. And this created by a member of the team typically, and it's broadcast out to the team. It's an epic actually, which makes attaching the issues much easier and tidier. But in it, just outlines a bit of the process that we use, which is making sure that each issue, each deprecation, whatever it is, whether it's a library or an operating system that we're going to interface to that we're deprecating, which is one of the reasons this comes up so much for us, because at the bottom of the screen, on Darren's screen, for instance, Ubuntu's got this bi-yearly, semi-yearly release cadence, which means in a given major release for us, we're probably needing to remove one or two that have kind of fallen out of support. And so for each one, they get a removal issue. We add a deprecation message into the change log. We create blog posts about it, and then ultimately go and remove the code. And so for each one, we can have this little stanza of these 4 or 5 checkbox items with a bit of a header showing what we're doing. And so at a really high level, it's really nice to go and see what we're planning on removing and all the work required to get there. So when we went into the 14.0 release cycle, it was all laid out for us. It was basically just divvying out these things. Usually deprecating or removing code is a fairly straightforward task. Anything that was complicated would have been, we've had so much time to think about it and prepare for it and get organized with it. And so here you can see the 15.0 issue. And I don't think there's anything actually in there yet, because there's nothing that we've planned to remove yet, because we're just starting this cycle. But there's a template to use to copy and paste into. And again, the process is kind of outlined in there. And so that this is just the one-stop place for anyone on the team who knows that they need to go and add prepare to deprecate something for 15.0, like where to do it. And yeah, it's even giving you given the formatting on the comment that we would add into the code if we're planning to deprecate such a feature.
Super, Elliot. I was just going to add from the perspective of the PM for the runner team, because the runner spans so many different platforms, and of course we support GitLab SaaS as well. Having, for example, the Fortinet own, which is a bit more fleshed out, just makes my life that much easier, because as we're going through like, for example, when this was created over a year ago, and specifically this was May 6, 2020, it made my life as the runner PM super easy, because the engineering team, Elliot and the team, would add in those items that were considered, that we were considering for deprecation / removal in the future. And it was easy for me to say, okay, in the next release, I would have to go and make sure I have a release post entry for this deprecation. There's a really nice way of checking off on it. I'm not saying that it's perfect, because things will come up. You might get into this December timeframe and realize we missed something, but at least we're not missing everything. It's just adding 1 or 2 things that might come in, but we've got a really solid start. Very early on in the cycle.
Yeah, I also think, like, I think over the last few major releases that I've been a part of, like, these have grown, right? Like, as our code base has grown, as our reach has grown, that means that we're also actually starting to deprecate more things. They're usually little small things, but like there's the volume of them's going up. And I'm sure at some point this process wouldn't really scale. If we were trying to track everything for all of GitLab 14.0 that need to be deprecated, I don't know if this would work. But on a team level, we're finding this works really well. It's easy. It's no one feels really like overburdened or overcomplicated by it that I'm aware of. No one's spoken up about this.
All right, super. So folks, that's all I want to cover with you today. Again, we will continue to have additional discussions on this topic, continued iterations on the overall policy. We hope everyone on the team that's looking at this video helps us to improve the process going forward. So anyway, that's it for Elliot. Thanks so much for joining. It was super cool having someone to banter with and to do this.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Cheers. Stop sharing.